Okay, let's get right into it. Turns out, science is finally catching up to something really interesting. If you grew up in the 70s, your brain is just different. We're talking wired differently on a deep neural level, all thanks to that unique decade.
Seriously, if that was your childhood, you went through something that just can't be recreated today. I mean, it's literally impossible. And it was so powerful that even now, decades later, the way your brain works can seem totally alien to younger folks.
And look, this isn't just about being nostalgic for bell-bottoms or classic rock. Nope. Think of it like your brain is running on a totally different operating system, one that was built in a very specific, very unique environment. So, what was the secret sauce? What made the 70s so different for a developing brain?
Right. So let's start with this idea of a different wiring. Some brain scientists actually call the 70s a Goldilocks period for growing up. Not too much of this, not too little of that. It was just right. And it created this really specific set of skills. The first one, it has everything to do with how you learn to deal with being bored.
It all started with those 4 magic words from your parents, right? Go find something to do. You figured out real quick that saying, "I'm bored" was a one-way ticket to chores, like folding laundry or, pulling weeds. So the only other option was to get creative and figure it out on your own.
And you know what? That simple phrase actually built a really important skill. Scientists call it self-directed problem solving. Basically, your brain got really, really good at making something out of nothing. It learned to create its own purpose, its own structure when nobody was there to hand it to you. And that's the whole point, isn't it? Your schedule wasn't packed with a million different classes and play dates. You just existed. You'd read a book for hours, you'd be out exploring the neighborhood until the streetlights flickered on, you'd spend a whole afternoon on some crazy fort project. All that time inventing your own fun, that was basically a workout for your brain's executive function.
Okay, so that covers the independence part. But what about that calmness you seem to have when everything is hitting the fan? Well, that comes from the next piece of the puzzle. And it was forged by taking actual physical risks.
Yeah, believe it or not, psychology tells us that kids who get to take some physical risks, they grow up with lower anxiety and get way better at telling what's a real threat. Climbing a tree that was maybe a little too high, riding your bike with no helmet, building some janky ramp. That was your version of scrolling the internet. Every time you did it, you were fine-tuning your nervous system.
And this is such a perfect way to put it. Those scraped knees, those stitches, maybe even a broken bone. They weren't traumas, they were data points. Your brain was just collecting information, learning the difference between, uh-oh, this is bad, and I'll be fine. They were stories you could tell, not scars you had to hide. And it's probably why a meltdown at work today barely even makes you blink.
But now we get to the part that might be the absolute hardest for anyone younger to really get. The pre-digital mind. See, you grew up being okay with silence. You were comfortable just being alone with your own thoughts.
I mean, just look at this difference. Before we were all connected 24/7, being alone was just normal. Boredom wasn't some kind of crisis you had to immediately fix with a screen. It was what sparked your next big idea. And silence? It was a chance to think, not some awkward gap you had to fill. Your brain just never got hooked on that need for constant input.
And get this, modern science really shows how deep this change goes. There was a study where people literally chose to give themselves mild electric shocks rather than just sit quietly with their own thoughts for 15 minutes. Can you even imagine? For a brain wired in the 70s, that's just wild. It shows you just how much our basic wiring has changed. So this comfort with being quiet leads right into the next big thing, the skill of just waiting. Think about it. The whole analog world back then was like a boot camp for patience, and you didn't even have a choice. You wanted to watch your favorite show? You had to wait a whole week for the next episode. You took photos? You waited days to get the film developed to even see them? Wanted to talk to a friend? You had to wait until you could actually get them on their home phone. You couldn't just binge watch or see a photo instantly. Everything had a built-in delay. And we now know that kind of training is amazing for building impulse control. For you, waiting is just part of life, not some kind of terrible punishment. So, let's put it all together. You've got this self-direction, this ability to handle risk, being okay with silence, and a deep-seated patience. This isn't just a random list of old-fashioned habits. No, it's something way more powerful. It's basically a cognitive superpower.
And what's the foundation for all of it? It's simple. Unsupervised autonomy.
You had one main rule, right? Be home before the street lights come on. That was it. Nobody was tracking your phone. You had to figure things out for yourself, sort out your own squabbles with other kids, and deal with the fallout on your own.
And that's the bottom line. That environment gave you this amazing toolkit of core strengths. You learned how to be capable because people just trusted you to be capable. You developed this strong inner compass, this sense of internal validation that didn't need 1,000 likes or constant praise to work.
So if you ever feel like you're a little out of sync with the world today, just remember this. That calmness that some people might mistake for being distant, or that independence that might come off as being cold, listen, those aren't bugs in your programming. They're features, premium features.
I mean, think about it for a second. The world today is desperately trying to recreate what your childhood just gave you naturally. We've got all this research now telling us, oh, kids need managed risk and unstructured playtime is good for creativity. You're not stuck in the past. You are literally carrying skill sets that the future is starving for.
And that really leaves us with one last big question. In a world that seems to reward the exact opposite of everything your brain was trained to do, a world of constant noise and external validation, how do you use this quiet power you have? How do you take those amazing strengths, that focus, that patience, that autonomy, and really make them count in this age of distraction?